June 6, 1944, before a single rifle cracked at Omaha Beach, before the first ramp of a landing craft slammed into the surf, a different kind of killer was already moving through the Allied ranks. Quiet, patient, and utterly indifferent to bravery, logistics failure. The silent force that could starve an army faster than any enemy bullet. What if the greatest threat in World War II was not the machine gun nest on the bluff, but the empty crate behind the lines? History proves it again and again. In the opening hours of D-Day, thousands of American troops stormed the beaches of Normandy in Operation Overlord. Yet by nightfall, the real battle had shifted inland. Not just against German resistance, but against time, tides, and tonnage. The planners had calculated that to sustain the invasion, the Allies would need to land roughly 20,000 vehicles and 100,000 tons of supplies in the first weeks, alone. When a violent channel storm struck on June 19, 1944, it destroyed one of the two Mulberry artificial harbors and wrecked countless landing craft, scattering floating piers like broken bones across the sea. For days, fuel, rations, and ammunition bottlenecked on the beaches while frontline units rationed bullets and shared canteens. Soldiers who had survived artillery now feared something colder, running dry. And that pattern was not unique to Normandy. On December 16, 1944, when Germany launched the Ardennes Offensive, known as the Battle of the Bulge, American units were caught thinly supplied in the freezing forests of Belgium. Temperatures dropped below zero. Trucks stalled. Fuel lines froze. Wounded men lay in foxholes as medics crawled through snow under mortar fire, sometimes discovering that plasma had crystallized inside its glass bottle. There are accounts of stretcher bearers slipping on ice slick not just with snow, but with blood that froze almost black in the moonlight. The horror was not only the explosions overhead, but the knowledge that help might not reach you in time because a bridge miles away had collapsed under the weight of a supply convoy. Consider also the Eastern Front, where logistics turned entire armies into ghosts. When Germany launched Operation Barbarossa on June 22, 1941, it advanced with staggering speed, but its supply lines stretched over hundreds of miles of primitive roads. By autumn, rain turned dirt tracks into oceans of mud during the Rasputitsa season. Trucks sank to their axles. Horses, still the backbone of German transport, collapsed from exhaustion. Ammunition lagged far behind advancing panzer divisions. As winter arrived, soldiers lacked proper winter clothing because planners had assumed the Soviet Union would fall before the snow. Frostbite maimed thousands. Rifles jammed in sub-zero temperatures. Diaries describe men waking to find the soldier beside them, frozen stiff, eyes open, skin pale as wax. No dramatic firefight. No heroic charge. Just silence and the slow, creeping death of exposure. Logistics decided that fate as surely as any general. Even the Pacific Theater revealed this invisible killer. On Guadalcanal, beginning August 7, 1942, U.S. Marines fought not only Japanese forces, but malaria, hunger, and supply shortages. Japanese troops, cut off by American naval dominance, suffered catastrophic starvation. Some units were reduced to eating grass, roots, and whatever they could scavenge. Survivors later described night patrols where the jungle felt alive with whispers, where skeletal figures emerged from the darkness like phantoms, too weak to fight, driven mad by hunger. Supply convoys became lifelines, and when they failed, entire regiments withered. One of the most chilling examples came during the siege of Leningrad, which began on September 8, 1941. The city was encircled for 872 days. Civilians survived on rations that dropped to as little as 125 grams of bread per day during the winter of 1941-42. That bread was often bulked with sawdust. Corpses lay in stairwells because families lacked the strength to bury them. The road of life across the frozen Lake Lodo became the only supply route. trucks driving over ice that cracked under artillery bombardment. Drivers who fell through disappeared into black water beneath the ice, swallowed without ceremony. Logistics there was not about advancing armies, but about preventing total annihilation. And yet, from these nightmares came extraordinary acts of heroism. During the Red Ball Express operations beginning August 25, 1944, thousands of mostly African-American drivers operated nearly non-stop convoys from the beaches of Normandy to the front lines in France. They drove through darkness without headlights to avoid enemy aircraft, engines roaring, nerves stretched thin. If a truck broke down, it was pushed aside because momentum meant survival. These men delivered the fuel that allowed General Patton's Third Army to surge across France. Without them, tanks would have become steel coffins stranded in open fields. Their courage was not in charging a bunker, but in gripping a steering wheel for 20 hours straight, knowing a single strafing run could ignite the fuel they carried and turn their convoy into an inferno. Logistics also shaped the fall of powers. By 1945, Allied bombing campaigns had devastated German rail networks and synthetic fuel plants. On March 7, 1945, when U.S. forces captured the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen, it provided a crucial crossing over the Rhine, accelerating the push into Germany. But behind that dramatic seizure was a relentless campaign to choke supply arteries. Trains derailed. Bridges collapsed. Fuel depots exploded in fireballs visible for miles. German armored units often had tanks but no gasoline, artillery but no shells. Soldiers retreated not because they lacked will, but because their supply columns had been shattered. The same pattern haunted Japan. Submarine warfare cut off shipping lanes, sinking merchant vessels faster than they could be replaced. By late 1944, fuel shortages crippled pilot training. Kamikaze missions were in part a grim reflection of scarcity, a grim calculation when resources were too for prolonged campaigns. Strip away the heroics and the battlefield glory, and you see a brutal arithmetic. Calories, gallons, tons, miles. War became a contest of factories and freight routes as much as rifles and resolve. The horror is that many soldiers did everything right and still faced death because somewhere far behind them, a shipment was delayed, a bridge bombed, a harbor wrecked by storm. And yet within that machinery of supply, humanity flickered. Medics under fire dragged wounded comrades to aid stations stocked by exhausted quartermasters. Engineers rebuilt roads overnight so ambulances could pass at dawn. Dockworkers unloaded crates in blackout conditions, hands raw, backs bent, knowing that inside those boxes were bandages, morphine, hope. World War II was won not only by generals and infantry, but by logisticians who understood that an army march is not just on courage, but on fuel, food, and faith that the next convoy will arrive. So as you picture the thunder of artillery and the clash of armies, ask yourself this: if the bullets had stopped but the supplies had vanished, would the outcome have been any different? And how many victories were decided not in the roar of combat, but in the chilling silence of an empty warehouse?